When I was around 15, my family and I moved into a 3-bedroom house. My older sister chose the bigger bedroom and I didn't really care much at the time. I got the smaller room down the hall, which kinda looked creepy since there was a window right at the end of the hallway and my bedroom would be on the side of where the window was. So when you go out of the room, on your right you'd see a small window on the wall next to me where the hallway ends. As I was getting my stuff into my bedroom, I saw something odd, which looked like a nail which was on the windowsill. I ignored it and just went back into my new room. Little did I know that this house was previously owned by a crazy old woman who had died in this house. My parents told me this after when things started to get worse. So anyway, as I unpacked everything and sorted my stuff, I felt a cold breeze come out of nowhere. Mind you, it was summer and was very hot during that time. Out the corner of my eye, I saw a black figure moving right where the window was. I was 6 to 7 feet away from it because I was in my room. During this time, I froze and felt tingles down my spine. I quickly ran downstairs to my parents, and didn't have the words to explain what just occurred. After calming down for a bit, I told them about the black figure and my father went upstairs with me to check up on it, but he said, "You're not a child anymore." I felt hurt because he thought I was playing around with him. He then checked everywhere, my room and the window close by, but there was nothing. A few hours went by and we all were eating dinner. My older sister was in a bad mood and was texting her friends at the table, which she always used to do. I was the talkative one whenever it was time to eat dinner with my family, but in reality I'm an introverted girl. So, I was asking how Dad's day at work went, and he said it was okay. Suddenly, we heard a loud thump coming from upstairs. You could kinda see the hallway because that's where the stairs led up to, and downstairs is where the dining area was next to the kitchen. My dad then asked, "What was that?" in a concerned tone. He got up from the dining table and grabbed his old bat that he always kept in the kitchen if we were ever in danger. He slowly made his way upstairs and heard more sounds. It got louder, and I was getting really scared. He then got to the final step and went to stand in front of my room. He also looked to the side where the window was, outside in the hallway. No one was there, but sounds came mostly from my room. He tried opening the door, but it was locked. How could that be? I never lock it, and there is no key to lock it or anything that makes it locked. It was an old doorknob. My dad began to push all his body against the door, and it finally opened so hard that he nearly fell over. I ran upstairs so fast to see if he was okay. My dad told me he was fine and the door was stuck. As he was talking to me in my room, I just felt like looking into that window, and what I saw was dreadful. It was that dark figure standing, but outside looking through the window directly at me, and I screamed so loud that the neighbors could hear it. My dad rushed to me and didn't see anything. I told him something was there, but he just couldn't see it, and then the figure vanished. No one believes me to this day, but I'm glad we eventually moved out of that creepy house. Me, my husband, and my 2-year-old daughter had moved into a semi-new apartment complex. I was a stay-at-home mom. I first noticed that the lights flickered in the hallway and the TV would turn off on its own. I always felt uneasy being alone in the apartment. It felt dark, although it had lots of windows and there was plenty of light during the daytime. One very early morning, at the break of dawn, I heard a jingling of tags from a pet, and then something jump onto the bed, do circles on my comforter and lay down by my legs. I grew up with the dog sleeping with me and thought, the dog is asleep now. But we don't have a dog. I bolted up, nothing there. Thought it was a dream. I decided to switch bedrooms with our daughter, as she had the larger one. One night in the other bedroom I was asleep early morning again, and the covers kept being tugged down off me. I am always cold and a light sleeper, so I finally woke up and the covers were moving on their own. My husband woke up and saw it too. They were being pulled down off of us. I didn't go back to sleep that morning. A couple of weeks later I had a dream where someone said, "Do you want to see a ghost?" I said sure, and got out of bed and walked into the living/dining area. I looked to the right and noticed our apartment was filled with old antique furniture and was decorated with someone else's things. Confused, I turned my head to the left dining area and saw an old gray woman crouched over what appeared to be a desk. She turned her head and glared angrily at me, which scared the crap out of me, and I woke up. I was rattled for days. A month or so later, we were sitting outside talking to the upstairs neighbors, a mother and daughter. She went on to say that the former tenant in our apartment was an elderly woman who was a piano teacher, but they made her stop having students come to the apartment because of the traffic taking up parking spaces and noise from the piano playing. She also said she was an extremely angry old woman and that she had died in the apartment. I froze and said, "Did she have a little dog that died there too?" She said, "Yes, she did," with a puzzled look on her face like, "How did you know that?" I didn't even bother to explain because no one ever believes you and writes off these experiences as sleep paralysis or something else. We were only there a year and moved. Never saw the old woman again. When I was in middle school, I would spend a lot of time at the rectory of my Catholic school during the summer. I was too old for daycare and too young to be left home alone. My mom was an administrator there and would sometimes give us the keys to the empty school for my brothers and I to play manhunt with our friends. We were very mischievous and would sometimes snoop around places we weren't allowed to. Specifically the fourth floor, which you need a key to access from the elevator or emergency exit. It used to be a convent, back when they had nuns living and teaching there. A long dark corridor is lined with rooms that used to be where they slept. In the middle was a chapel where a priest would hold mass for them. The main church for the public was downstairs attached to the building. This chapel was not in use at the time, but over the years the school would occasionally hold art and music lessons there. It's the only reason I was familiar with it. So anyway, our little gang had a lot of rooms and things to explore on this floor. There was one room with a drum kit and another empty room with a random bed that visiting priests would sometimes stay in if there wasn't space at the rectory. I was the youngest of the group, maybe 11 or so, and was kind of the odd one out. Some were coupled up and hooking up somewhere. My brother and his friend liked to find cool old stuff to steal that no one cared about. I just liked to snoop around. It was early afternoon, so the sun was beaming in through the windows. With the exception of that long dark corridor with the rooms I described before. I was looking for my brother when I was about to turn a corner to that corridor, and this tall brolic white priest comes walking up to me. He looked super stressed out. I was scared that he would tell my mom we were on the fourth floor, so I apologized for the intrusion and explained that we were leaving. I had no idea that a priest was visiting. My mom would normally have mentioned something like this, nevertheless give us keys if someone was staying there. He shook his head and let out a big sigh, then asked me, "Where are the albs?" in a very exasperated tone. I said that I didn't know what those are and apologized, but he kept asking over and over. Finally, he sighs again and walks back down that corridor. My heart was pounding because I knew my mom was gonna be so pissed. I find my brother and we gather everyone to hightail it out of there. My brother asked me where the guy went, and it was then I realized I didn't hear any doors close or open. Not only that, but I didn't hear any footsteps either. We looked around kinda scratching our heads and headed back to the rectory where my mom was having lunch at her desk. When I handed her the keys, I didn't waste any time coming clean about going to the 4th floor. I explained that I had met the new priest, and she looked stunned. Like genuinely concerned. There was no priest visiting. I told her about the albs and asked her what he was looking for. I couldn't have known that word and she knew it. She immediately got on the phone with the janitor who lived nearby and asked him to do a sweep of the school and church. They were concerned that someone had broken into the school. They never found anyone. Later that evening, I overheard my parents talking about this incident, and I heard my dad ask my mom if she thinks it might be the ghost of that priest who killed himself up there in the 60s. I also later found out that my brother's friend stole a couple of albs from a closet in the chapel. They might have belonged to that priest.